Welcome back to the mostly mundane adventures of Jim. Last time I shared with you a segment entitled Playing Hard. This time I would like to start off with one called Praying Hard. Church life was very important to we Deckards. 3 times a week we could be found in our customary seats at the Indiana Avenue Church of Christ. When the Skunderwals from Indonesia moved into our neighborhood, the Garros family from Holland thought they might like our church, although the Garros were Unitarian. So one Sunday morning, the 2 families joined us at our church. Neil Garros and I sat together, and he was looking around at everything with great interest. He spied the communion cup holders on the back of the pews where we placed our empty cups after drinking the Welch's grape juice during our weekly communion service. He pointed to the cup holders and, leaning toward me, whispered, "What are these for, cigarettes?" He informed me that they didn't go to church in the summer because they were on vacation. We loved our church, but our guests were not impressed and didn't come a second time. Our church was very conservative, and we males always wore dress pants, dressy jackets, white shirts, and ties. Alan, Bill, and David, my 3 older brothers, passed their clothing down from one to the other and then to me. By the time it got to me, it wasn't always in the greatest shape. And poor Eddie, 8 years younger than me, well, he'd have to get his clothes somewhere else. A new church. Our Indiana Avenue congregation decided it would be a good idea to start another Church of Christ on the west side of Bloomington. So from our own ranks, we got volunteers to go and pioneer that work. Dad volunteered our whole family, and he supervised much of the construction process. The church purchased a tract of land in Highland Village, and building got underway. As an 11-year-old, I was enlisted as free labor on several projects. The first thing that I helped with was bending rebar to drop into the footers for the foundation. It was an exciting venture. A new house. That deal with the rat that dodged all of Mom's shoe missiles and ran amok all over our house on Walnut Grove had really done a number on her. She was a pioneer of a woman. Born in Fresno, California in 1920, moved to Washington State as a small child, and then off to Indiana, a journey of 30 days in the family's Model T Ford. The highways were gravel roads, but most of their travel was on dirt or mud roads. Each night they camped out as there were no motels. They crossed over mountains where sometimes they had to back up a steep grade because the reverse gear was lower than the lowest forward gear. Grandpa Bishop taught Grandma to drive to give himself some rest. She did what she could, but it was rough going, even for the seasoned driver, and after that trip, she never drove again. All that to say, Mom knew how to rough it, but she drew the line at living with rats, and told Dad we needed a new place. We had good times and good friends at that old place. Yes, we had a lot of good times in that old place. For example, the time it rained popcorn. I loved our warm coal stove in the living room, especially the time that Mom brought 3 or 4 quarts of spoiled popcorn that Dad had grown in from the cellar and dumped them into our hot stove. She thought it was all bad, but we started hearing faint sounds of popping, and then a little louder and more frequent. Mom lifted the door, and popcorn started coming out onto the floor, and when it finally stopped, it had made a thin blanket on our new linoleum. And then there was the day that Edward was delivered from the bottle. As a toddler, our new little brother was addicted to the bottle. In fact, he was often spotted with one under each arm. One day, Mom picked him up along with the 2 bottles and opened up the coal stove and said, "Eddie, wouldn't you like to just throw those bottles into the stove?" And he didn't hesitate. He hasn't touched the bottle since. And oh yes, then there was backyard camping. We neighbor kids decided to camp out in our backyard one night, and we didn't have tents. No problem though. Mom came through with blankets, which we draped over our clotheslines and weighted the corners down with bricks. We didn't have sleeping bags either. Also not a problem. There were more blankets. We didn't sleep at all that night. All we could think about was the hard ground, creepy crawly things, and the very possibility of an invasion of killer rats. One did kill my pet rabbit, Oscar. And then, of course, the blood-sucking bats coming out each night to feast on children. We didn't know that they were too busy eating mosquitoes to think about us kids. And then, with all those scary thoughts saturating our brains, the unexpected happened. A pack of dogs attacked our tent, led by a short, stout bulldog, and they tore up our campsite. This sent us scurrying into our various houses, where at last we got some sleep. We didn't use stakes, we used bricks.